Hello, thank you for joining me today. This is a short video on how energy centers work. Looking at our diagram here, we have 7 energy centers in the body, starting at starting around our perineum and going all the way up to the top of our head. But there's 7 general centers, and they operate the same way energetically and chemically and everything throughout your body. And so what we want to understand about the energy center is each one of these centers, as we see in the diagram, each one of these centers is has organs, cells, glands, a chemistry, a nerve center, a nerve plexus. Some of them have more than one nerve plexus, but they have a major nerve plexus in that center. And all of this is connected to the brain here. We have a connection that runs from the brain to each one of these centers, and we're just showing one center right now. But what we want to talk about is what happens when we have an input. Let's say we have a sensory input. We have a sensory input into the system, into our brain. We see something, we smell something, we hear something, and it creates a thought, some type of response and an emotion, a chemical response in the brain, and then signal. When we get this, a signal is sent. It's sent down this connection, and it's targeted at the center that corresponds to the frequency and the memory that's based in the brain and the nerve center. So if we have a response, let's say this is the third energy center, and we have a stress situation. We have some stress that comes into the system here and is placed through these sensory inputs. What happens is you get a response from the brain, and then chemistry and signals to the organs, and the chemistry and the organs of that center have a physical response, first chemically and in light frequency information also. So if we're in the third center and we have a stress, the adrenal glands will fire if that is a large enough stress. And then when those adrenal glands fire, there's actually if it's a stress, there's other signals that are sent to the to your other energy centers, telling the other glands and the other systems to either ramp up or cut back, so all the energy can be sent to where it needs to be sent. And this process is there's an energetic process happening as well, where there's an energy, and energy is wave. So we have this wave energy that's the integration of all the energies in this cell, in this center. You have an average frequency or a baseline frequency that's a integration of all this. So as different things change, that frequency changes. And if we have a stress, it's something that brings that out of homeostasis. It brings it out of a harmony and sends it one direction or another. And frequency-wise, this happens frequency-wise, chemically, all these different responses that occur due to this sensory input, and these nerves firing and creating these different things happening, not only in your brain, but wherever the signals are sent to the different centers. requiring different energies. So in a normal homeostasis, you have this nice energy pattern that's inside of this nerve center. But when you have a stress on something, it creates an imbalance and an incoherent activity within that. Normally you would have, let's say this pattern here is a normal pattern, and then all of a sudden you have this stress, and you have your adrenals fire, and you have other glands, nerve center is firing in there, and all these different things are going on. What happens is you get a response. The response to all of this is another wave, the integration of all those different things, and you get this incoherent pattern develops that's no longer nice and balanced. It's very incoherent, and it's this incoherency in these centers that causes us trouble. It causes trouble for us. Also, the memory of the nerve, the brain. You have a big brain here, and you've got smaller brains in these nerve plexus in all these different centers, and they all have memory. So if you have an incident happen to you, let's say you had somebody chew you out when you were a child over and over and over, well, that leaves that memory in your brain and also in those centers that fired at that time. So if we see something that looks like that, or we have an incident that looks like that to us now in this time, what happens is all that fires again. Something else that's interesting is if I think of that. See, your brain doesn't know the difference between you actually experiencing something and you thinking about it. It's all of that is thought and energy in the brain, and it's so if I think about that thing that happened to me over and over, I create those same responses, and I wire and fire that memory into my brain and these little brains even deeper. And that causes that every time I think of that, I get that imbalance, and it really keeps my center disorganized and out of balance. So what we want to do is we want to keep this nice coherent waveform in your center, and not this incoherent not this incoherent pattern here that we have right here. That's not the pattern we want. So what we want to do is we want to work on reprogramming ourselves to not have the same responses we had in the past. If we have something that creates a trigger, we all have things that trigger us. That's what happens. We see something that looks like something we had in the past, or we think about something in the past over and over and over. We trigger that response over and over and over. So most people are living in a response mode, thinking about the past, all the things that's happened to them in the past, or looking into the future and hoping, well, I hope, trying to dictate what a future is based on a past experience, and building this loop that just creates this stress. And then over a period of time, as you continue to have that stress in your system, you cause that the organs and the glands and the nerve centers, everything in that, we stress everything in that energy center and some of our other energy centers, and we create illness or dis-ease, a disease. Another thing about this is not only do we have a tendency to do this to ourselves over and over and over, is another thing that happens to us is when we get these energy centers out of balance, out of incoherence, we have a tendency to not understand that that our system needs to be coherent, and it needs to be in balance and harmony in order for everything to work. The immune system and the rebuilding, cells rebuilding. When you're in a incoherent state, your immune system goes down. Your cells don't have the frequency that they need, so they're not sending out the light information and they're not sending out the light information or taking in the information they need from the cells around them, that's where you have that illness and that disease develop. So it's really important to move these energy centers back into a state of balance and harmony. So real quick, to go over the process again, let's say I'm walking along and I see something that's just very similar to something that happened to me in the past that was very stressful. I see that. My brain has a memory of that's been wired in because it was either thought about so much or it was such a strong event when it occurred. It wired that into my brain, that memory in. And not only that, when it wired it in really strong, and also as it created the chemicals and sent a very strong center to the energy centers. And the energy centers that are in alignment with the different frequencies and vibrations of that energy receive information. And in the nerve plexus, the little brains, we have big brain here and we have little brains, it's wired and fired into those little brains. So every time we have an event that looks like that one we had, the brain goes off here, and then all the other centers go off at the same time and fire, because it's been wired in both places. And what that does is that creates that stress, that fight or flight, and that stress, and for whatever the situation. There's lots of different situations. The emotions that we feel, the chemical, the emotions we feel in our body, we're reproducing them again. And when we do this over and over, if we think about something like that over and over and over, and we don't let it go, what we do is we build that up, and our energy centers stay out of balance. And then our immune system doesn't do what it's supposed to do. Your cells won't replicate like they're supposed to. Things won't heal and repair. So in order to heal ourselves naturally, it's really important to get ourselves into a balance and harmony by balancing all of these energy centers. And there is a method by which we can go and bring each energy center, starting at our first energy center at our perineum and going up through all 7 and bringing them into coherence. And when we do that, and we do it on a daily basis, because we're in an environment that changes constantly. So lots of days I'm just as happy as I can be, and I'm in balance from the first part of the day till the end. But many days there's in this material world, in this reality we're in right now, there are things that disturb us, so it's really important to do this balancing every day. And when we keep our body in homeostasis, in balance and harmony, your body will repair and heal itself. It takes time. Once you've got everything is out of balance. If you have a center that's incoherent, and it's been incoherent for a long time, and you bring it into coherence, it takes time for that all the organs and the cells and things of that center to repair themselves. It takes time. It goes through a process of rebuilding, repairing. When the cells are working properly, when everything's working properly, it's pretty quick. So those are some factors about the energy center, and just the importance of doing the work on a daily basis can't be undersaid, or you can't underestimate what benefit that has for doing that, and all the other energy works that we do. are really important. Eating, your diet, what you do, getting enough exercise physically for your body, and keeping yourself energetically in alignment, extremely important, and emotionally in balance. So we've talked about what happens when we have a sensory input that creates a condition that sends signals and wires and fires into the brain, or fires something off in the brain, and the energy centers and how they react. The organs, the glands, the cells, the nerve centers, the chemistry of those areas. And so that's a very basic understanding of what's happening as you go through things. So I hope you've enjoyed this. Very simple. We will be talking a lot more about coherence and energy centers in further videos. So for now, namaste, and I'll see you in the next video.